Earlier this year, school officials and partners from the nonprofit world gathered on Thompson Island to discuss the potential of hands-on science for closing gaps in achievement and opportunity. To tell us about that potential and some possible next steps are the Vice President of Education from Thompson Island Outward Bound, Nikki Tabron, and the Executive Director of Hale Reservation, Arnold. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
I want to start by letting our viewers get acquainted with the places where you work. Nikki, people see the island out in the harbor sometimes. A lot of them don't know exactly what's going on there, so describe that.
So Thompson Island is an island out in the harbor, and our ferry leaves from South Boston, and basically it's 204 acres of a big classroom. Thompson Island has been a school since 1833, and now as an outward bound program, we combine hands-on field science with outward bound social emotional learning. And so we do that through a whole bunch of different ways. That includes high ropes, low ropes, overnights, camping, and kayaking in the harbor.
Eric, what about Hale Reservation?
Well, unlike Nikki, we're not surrounded by water. We got a little bit of water, but we are on 1,100 acres just outside of Boston in Westwood and Dover, about 5 miles from the city. And we're running programs with, on a day like today, about 2,000 students who will be with us for their summer camp experience. Everything that includes the environmental science programming to your traditional camp experiences, which might include archery and arts and crafts, to the ropes course and things along those lines. But a big focus for us is sort of the closing the opportunity gap for students who wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to do the sort of traditional camp experience, and then add some summer learning into that as well.
Nikki, your students have been going to Thompson Island for many years. There are all kinds of benefits, but now there's more of a focus on closing that learning gap in STEM subjects. How are you doing that exactly?
It's a great question. So on Thompson, the way that we do it is, like I said before, we combine hands-on field science with outward bound social emotional learning. And by doing that, the whole island becomes this classroom. And so the salt marsh becomes this place where students actually can go in and pull on muck boots and walk in and around the salt marsh and pull up organisms and look at them and talk about them with their teachers. And so it's all aligned to the curriculum. And so there's geology lessons, there's diversity lessons, and then that's all sort of wrapped up in the team building, community building elements, so that students learn how to be scientists and learn how to work on teams, so that ideally one day they might decide that they want to go on and participate in field science or environmental science.
Now, what are these kids like when they're mucking around and looking at stuff?
It's amazing. It's actually, you know, when they have the opportunity to get outside of the classroom and sort of roam free in this big open area with their instructors and with their teachers, it gives them a different opportunity or a different way to view the world around them and to really engage in it and to actively be in it. So partnered with what they're learning in the classroom and what they've done with their teachers, then they come out and they actually get to apply it in the field.
Eric, you've seen something like that at Hale Reservation?
Yeah, I think again, you know, our classroom is a little different than a salt marsh, but it's there, and our students may be on our floating classroom where they're out on the water and they're doing sampling of dissolved oxygen and pH and looking at what's happening in that water system, or walking through another sort of a swampy area for their science type of program. But it's very similar in a lot of ways. I think we share some similarities in what we're doing. Different location, different type of activities in some ways and shape. But I think what's great is that students have this opportunity to start to own that piece of our planet in some way and be connected to it in a way that they may not otherwise have been connected. And I think a lot of times we see our young students who come from Boston who have maybe not had the experience in the woods with the bugs, all those types of things. And as they grow comfortable over a longer period of time, start to believe this is a space that's theirs and that they can be a part of. And as I think, as Nikki was just saying, then have that belief that maybe that could be part of their future life and their career in some way. So,
Nikki, another challenge in Boston is that many of the students, you want to get into the STEM pipeline, they don't have good command of English, at least at the outset. Now, getting outdoors and doing things like you have at Thompson Island, do you see that helping overcome that barrier in some way?
Absolutely. I mean, when you give students the opportunity to engage physically in an activity or to see how other students are engaging in an activity, it gives them the ability to be able to express themselves in different ways. And so we do take into consideration our English language learners, and so when we do use documents, we have them so that they're broken out into different languages. But really the opportunity to be outside and engage in that physical space gives them the ability to be able to communicate in different ways that don't require them to necessarily talk to do it.
Eric, we have a tendency to think of open space as being the antithesis of the academic, but what's going on in the brain when people are out there, they're seeing things that are novel and intriguing?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I think that's one of the things that to me is the most exciting about and important when it comes to the power of being outdoors. I mean, what's happening in the brain is not only just what the students are learning and what the actual interaction may be through the curriculum, but it's also just what happens when we go outside is very different. And the number of studies that talk about our stress being decreased, the things that are happening even with our eyesight, how our brains are working differently when we step outside is all really important for the health of all of us, but important, I think, for younger, for children and young adults to really understand that that's an important thing for them. And it's a tool they can use. And we've seen that really happen with students, especially after they've gone through with us from that starting in 3rd, 4th grade, all the way up to their high school experience where they can now really reflect and articulate that this outdoor experience is changing them in a way that they didn't even know it could.
Nikki, speaking of changes, you're out there in the harbor, the sea levels are rising. What do you do about that for kids?
Well, I mean, it's actually been great. Last summer when we had the king tide come in, being able to use that to talk with students about global warming and climate change and the impact on just the front of the city and where the city and the water meet. And kids get a kick out of being able to come out and with our floating dock and seeing how high and where the boat is. So we do use it as an opportunity to engage students in what's actually really happening to their community and to talk about what's happening along the coastline of Boston.
Right, thank you both very much, Nikki Tabron and Eric Arnold.
Thank you.